What's up, everybody? It's your boy aka Big Zeke, coming at y'all with another weekly inspirational thought. I pray that you all have been well. I'm asking everybody to keep me in your prayers. I haven't been feeling the best the past few days, but I believe that God will heal me in due time, so just please keep me in your prayers. Today's topic, or thought, shall we say, is entitled Don't Worry About Being Busy. Focus more on spending time with God. Don't worry about being busy. Focus more on spending time with God. Part one. There is a part two that's coming at y'all next week. So, yes, this is part one. I got two reference scriptures. Both I'll be reading from the NIV version. The first is coming from Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And it reads, As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. And then the second one is from Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. From all the work of creating that he had done, excuse me. And so, got two quick definitions. The first set of definitions is for the word rest. The Webster Dictionary defines rest as freedom from activity or labor, a state of motionless or inactivity, peace of mind or spirit. And the American Heritage Dictionary defines it as a period of inactivity, relaxation, or sleep, sleep or refreshment resulting from inactivity or sleep. And then another set of definitions I have is for the word lazy. Now, Webster's dictionary defines lazy as disinclined to activity or exertion, not energetic or vigorous, encouraging inactivity or indolence. And the American Heritage Dictionary defines lazy as not willing to work or be energetic, conducive to inactivity or indolence. Okay? So the title was Don't Worry About Being Busy. Focus more on spending time with God. And we referenced the scripture where Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus when he came to visit Mary. He came to that town and Martha invited Jesus into her home. A lot of times we're like Martha. We're so focused on the work or preparations that need to be done around us. We get so busy and so caught up in work that we forget the important things. In this case, spending time with Jesus. See, Mary realized the important part of Jesus' visit. Said, I got to take a minute. Wait a minute. Jesus is here? I got to hear what he has to say. I got to spend time with him. I need to sit with him. Everything else can wait. And sometimes we get so caught up being busy that we forget to do that very thing that Mary did. So, my first thought is if rest wasn't important, and remember, we're talking about resting because Mary was resting at God's feet. She was sitting and listening. And when you're sitting and listening and you're inactive, you're resting. She was resting at the feet of Jesus, right? If rest wasn't important, why does God not only encourage rest throughout the Bible, but also shows us by example when he rested on the seventh day after working the first six? And I just read that in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Okay? And I did some looking throughout the week. There are at least 15 scriptures, at least 15 that I found, and there might be more, where the Bible references rest resting or being rested. So it's emphasized a lot throughout the Word of God. So rest is important because if it wasn't, I don't believe it would be emphasized as much. Now, there is a difference between rest and lazy, and that's why I read those two definitions, but we'll get into that momentarily. But yeah, there is a huge difference between being rested and being lazy. God rested on the seventh day. He made the seventh day holy. Even in the commandments, and we'll get into that, you know, probably in part two, but we'll get more into that. That he, even instructs us in the Ten Commandments to keep that day holy so that we are supposed to rest. But a lot of us, we get caught up being busy with preparations or work, like how Martha was, and we forget what's important, and we can't do that. Rest is important. And God knew this from the beginning of earth. So he laid out the example. He rested and laid out the example that we need to make sure that we rest in the midst of all of our work. Point number 2. Who are we truly helping and what are we truly getting done effectively if we allow ourselves to constantly be drained without getting proper rest? You ever see somebody that's so tired that they're working, but their pace is slowed or their production has lessened and they're so drained, but they're just working, 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 working? Sometimes we get to that point. I know I have, where you push yourself so hard and you're trying to do so much, trying to prove so much, not just to yourself, but it may be anybody, and you're pushing yourself so hard to work and work and work. And there's nothing wrong with work. I'm not discouraging work in any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is, let's not be so caught up in work that we forget to rest along the way, that we forget what's important along the way. And the biggest thing of importance that we forget when we constantly are working and overworking is spending time with God. How many times, if we're honest about it, have we ran out the house because we were late for work, but we forgot to pray when we got up in the morning or talk to God? How many times have we woken up, went about our day, and did everything we were supposed to do and get knocking off our checklist, but the one thing we don't do is sit in God's presence or study his word or spend time with him? We get so caught up on work that we forget things like prayer and spending time with God, because for us as humans, it seems like it's the easiest thing just to check off the list. Oh, I'll do it later. And we can't be like that. We got to be more like Mary and recognize the importance of spending time with God. Recognize the importance of what's important. Recognize the importance of resting, taking a moment away from everything else and say, you know what? All this work can wait. Right now, it's time to rest. Okay? To the point I just made, when we use our cell phones, our batteries get drained, and when we don't charge them, and then sometimes we'll let them get down to like 2%. I know a lot of people who let their phones get drained so much that either they cut off all the time or they down low, right? So how can we make an important call if our phones are drained to that 2%? Now keep in mind, most phones, they got that automatic shut off thing. So when it's like 2% or even 1%, it'll shut off to try to reserve that 1%, right? So in that same line of thought, how can we effectively operate and do the things that we need to do, especially our kingdom assignments, if we don't recharge or rest and we let ourselves get down to that 2%, and then we all of a sudden our bodies are shutting down and we automatically shut down? Again, we won't be at our full effectiveness if we don't learn to recharge ourselves and rest. If we're just going, 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 we're not like that Energizer Bunny commercial. You know how they, remember, if people remember the Energizer Bunny commercial where the bunny is beating the drum and he talking about lasting, durability, this and this. We need a recharge. And to get that recharge requires us to rest. Not just our bodies, our minds, our spirits. We need to rest our thoughts from thinking so much. We need to rest our minds, our hearts, everything. We need to rest. We have to learn to rest. Something I'm still learning how to fully do is rest. That's what God, I truly believe that's what God designed for us to do is rest. Or else he wouldn't have gave us the example of resting by resting himself after he created the heaven and the earth. So again, we can't let ourselves to get so low without recharging or resting because we'll end up being ineffective. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't like it when I'm so drained that my work is ineffective or whatever I'm doing or whoever I'm trying to help, it's ineffective. I would rather be charged up and fully capable of helping everybody and doing everything that I'm supposed to do than to be trying to do extra work and less effective. Point number 4. The Bible instructs us on a few different occasions to be like Jesus. With that being said, with all of the miracles and the work that Jesus was doing for the kingdom nonstop, he found time to rest. So why can't we if we're supposed to be like him? Now, where do you see Jesus rested? Well, look at the example in Mark chapter 4, 37 and 38. There's a storm going on. They're on a boat. Midst of the boat, this raging storm is going on. Now, I'm not a sailor, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of work that has to be done in order to get out of a storm on that boat, right? While everybody was trying to do work and they were panicking and they were over the work, where was Jesus? If you read those scriptures, he was in the cabin asleep. He was resting. In the midst of a storm, he was resting. He wasn't being lazy, he was resting. Okay? So if Jesus could do that, and on multiple occasions the Bible tells us to be like Jesus, then why can't we learn to rest, even in the midst of storms, even when there's work to be done, but we're drained, or whatever the case is? And if I'm not mistaken, and those who are Bible scholars can correct me if I'm not mistaken, Jesus had got through doing a lot of miracles in the town prior to them getting on that boat, if I'm not mistaken. And he was on that boat and he was resting. We have to learn to get to a point, no matter what stuff looks like, no matter what has to get done. Sometimes we just have to rest to fully accomplish the tasks at hand. Again, difference between being lazy and resting. See, when you're lazy, it's you don't care about getting the work done. You ain't trying to get no work done. You putting it off, you procrastinating, you ain't trying to get no work done. You don't care about no work. You don't care about the results. You don't care. But when you're resting, you're just recharging so that when you get back up, you can knock that work out and you can finish whatever work you have to do or help whoever it is you have to help. But you're resting so you can be at full capacity to do it. See, there's a difference. So I'm not telling anybody to be lazy. The Bible instructs us to work, and we're going to get into that more in the part 2 next week. But the Bible instructs us to work. So I am not hating on work at all. What I'm saying is we have to have a balance between working and resting. Because if it's just all work, all work, all work, and we take that I'll rest when I'm dead mentality, we're going to burn ourselves out way sooner than God ever intended us to. Okay? And the final note I'm going to hit for this week is this. Some businesses even understand the biblical principle of rest. Chick-fil-A, for example, and I know a lot of y'all probably knew I was going there when I said businesses, but it's true. Many of their company's values are influenced by their late founder, S. Truett Cathy, who is a devout Christian, I believe, of Southern Baptist goer. And as a result of that, Chick-fil-A restaurants are closed on Sunday in observance of the Sabbath, And I'm not here to debate whether the Sabbath is on Sunday or Saturday. That's not my intention. But as well as Thanksgiving and Christmas, in observance of those, of holidays, resting. The reference scripture for that, Exodus 34 and 21, reads, 6 days shall you labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Even during the plowing season or harvest season, you must rest. That was the NIV. You can read the King James Version. It virtually says the same thing. Rest. Businesses are understanding this concept of rest. We all have to get to that point where we understand the concept of rest and balance rest and workout, okay? I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be so overworked and I'm not properly rested. I've been through that phase of my life. I've done that and experienced burnout because of it. We got to get to a point where we're learning to rest and focus on what's important. And like I said, the most important thing you can do while you're resting is spending time with God while you're resting, asking God that while you're resting, let Him speak to you. Let Him show you what moves to make next if you got work to be done. And I'm pretty sure all of us could use a good rest every once in a while. Nothing wrong with resting, okay? That's it for this week, y'all. That's part one. Like I said, part two will be coming next week. All of the reference scriptures will be in the comments below. I love you guys. Continue to keep me in your prayers as I will keep you and yours in your prayers. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Take care. Love on somebody. Get some rest when you can. And as always, be inspired.